we are going to finish classwork 6 for today. We have finally gotten to the point where I'm going to just start asking you to find values of sine and cosine with various angles. So, yes. Yes, stay here. Stay here because no matter how well you understood it, you need exposure. You need to spend a lot of time. Okay, so here we go. If I asked you, what is the sine of 150 degrees? You would need to find where 150 degrees has a terminal side land. So you've got the initial side of the angle turns, and you have the terminal side of the angle. And it intersects the unit circle at an xy coordinate. The sine of 150 is the same as the y coordinate, and that would be positive 1/2. And that would be your answer. If I asked you for the cosine of 150 degrees, what would be your answer? And so if you know what you're doing, good, yes. If you know what you're doing, you can tell me the answer. What is the cosine of 150? Good. Then what is the sine of 270 degrees? Okay. Anyone who thinks they know the answer should type it in. When you find where 270 degrees lands, again, the initial side is the positive x-axis. You turn for 270 degrees and land here. It intersects the unit circle at an xy coordinate. The sine is the y coordinate of that point, and I see a lot of correct answers there, -1, or at least a few correct answers that people have written. Okay, what is the cosine of 270 degrees? It's the x coordinate of this point, and that x coordinate is 0. Good. Oh, good. Good, good, good. So now I'm going to erase these. You have your classwork open. And while I've gone through a little bit of this with you, let's go back and look at it again. And you've got the circle in front of you. You can look at that. If I ask you to go 150 degrees, that's going to land right there. And realize that in that quadrant, there are 3 special terminal sides of angles. You want the y coordinate of this point. What is the answer? You want the y coordinate of 150 degrees. And is there only one person who sees it? If you know the answer, I want you to type it in because I need to know who's understanding. 150 degrees 1/2. There we go. Okay. Then 135 degrees, what is the cosine? (135°). That's asking what is the x-coordinate, and what is the correct answer? Almost. There you go. It is -√2/2. What is the cosine of 180 degrees? And then what is the sine of 180 degrees? Mm-hmm. The coordinate of this point right here, understanding that we are on a unit circle, this is on the x-axis. The x-coordinate is -1. The y-coordinate is 0. That means the cosine is -1 and the sine is 0. Mm-hmm. Then what about 90 degrees? What are the cosine and sine values of 90 degrees? And that's where you can put down, this has x-coordinate 0, y-coordinate 1. Good. So the cosine is 0 and the sine is 1. So if you know how to do the unit circle for sine and cosine, then you are ready for the other 4. Because all you need to remember is, how do the other functions interact with, or what are they in terms of sine and cosine? So let's go with, if I asked you what is secant in terms of sine and cosine, what would you tell me? Jason, just hold on. Right. It's cosine's reciprocal. Good. Cosecant is what in terms of sine and cosine? Reciprocal of sine. Now, do you remember what tangent is in terms of sine and cosine? And if you don't remember it right away, let me remind you that tangent is opposite over adjacent. Everyone knows that, right? Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go over hypotenuse. And now tell me, what is tangent equal to? And then sine over cosine. And then cotangent is tangent's reciprocal, so cosine over sine. So here we go. The cosecant of 240 is 1 divided by the sine of 240. So what is the sine of 240? There are some easier ways to deal with tangent and cotangent that I'm going to get to after a while too. So correct, -√3/2. That's why I wanted you to just hold on and stay with me for a little bit. But it's the reciprocal of -√3/2. I was about ready to write it incorrectly. All I have to do to reciprocate is flip it. And I am very happy for you to leave it with a square root in the denominator. Do you see how all I did was I just switched numerator denominator? Done. Okay? For secant of 120 degrees, you want to find the cosine of 120 degrees and flip it. So 120, what is the cosine of 120? The cosine is the x-coordinate of this point, which is negative 1/2. And what is the reciprocal of negative 1/2? -2. Okay, now tangent. To find tangent of 315 degrees, it's this, I just had a dyslexic moment if you didn't notice that. I need the sine over the cosine, and I'm going to focus on 315. 315, there we go. So let's find 315 degrees and look at what is the sine and what is the cosine. And remember, the sine is the y, the cosine is the x. The y is negative root 2 over 2. The x is positive root 2 over 2. What does that fraction simplify to? And Elika, you are correct. And Sophia, correct. And Jason, you're correct. Excellent. That reduces to -1 because it's just root 2 over 2 and then a negative sitting around. Now, I want you to notice something, and this is really valuable. I want you to step away from what we're doing a moment. And I'm going to highlight the terminal side of that angle. And I want you to step back from this, and I want you to go back in time and remember when you were writing equations of lines. This line, I'm going to extend it out all the way to here. What is the equation of that line? It goes through the origin. What is the equation of that line? Ah, yes. I was having a hard time seeing the negative with the equal sign. When you take a good look at that and think about it for a minute, do you see that that is the line y equals -x? Does everyone see that? What is the slope of that line? What is the slope of the line y equals -x? And I'm waiting. What is the slope of the line y equals -x? Yes, good. There you go. Yes, -1. It's the number that x multiplies by. The tangent of 315 is -1. Any guesses on the tangent of 135? And if you need to, let's write out the tangent of 135 degrees is equal to the sine of 135 degrees divided by the cosine of 135 degrees. The sine is positive root 2 over 2. The cosine is negative root 2 over 2. What does that simplify to? -1. Now, I want to also remind you, with sine and cosine, they represent x and y coordinates. So if I write sine theta over cosine theta, do you remember up a little higher in the notes, cosine theta is x, sine theta is y. And what is slope? What is slope? Somebody tell me. Either mic on or say something in chat. Rise over run. If you take a line that goes through the origin, which all of these blue lines that I have drawn here go through the origin, and then you take a point on the unit circle and you look at the slope between those 2 points, you are going to get whatever the xy coordinate is. I'm just going to put x comma y. In fact, I need to make that x comma y. The rise is then y minus 0. The run is x minus 0 if I'm looking in a line through the origin 0, 0. Delta, or delta y over delta x. So what I want you to realize, which is going to save you a lot of time, is realize that tangent and slope are the same. That means that every single angle that I am right now drawing those all have negative slopes. Their tangents are negative. I'm going to now draw lines with positive tangents. This is a positive 1 slope. All of these angles have positive slopes. And I've got one better. Are you ready for this one? I'm going to try to make this show a lot better. I'm going to draw a line on the x-axis. What is the slope of that line? 0. What is the tangent of 0 degrees based on what I just helped you to think through? Now check. At this point right here, the x-coordinate is 1, the y-coordinate is 0. And tangent is supposed to be sine over cosine. What is the tangent of 180 degrees? Also 0. And its xy coordinate is negative 1, 0. Tangent is sine over cosine. But next I've got a harder one for you. Tell me about the slope of the vertical line right here. It is not defined. Now, if you look at taking sine divided by cosine, sine is the y-coordinate 1, cosine is the x-coordinate 0. If you divide by 0, if you take something that isn't 0 and divide it by 0, you're getting undefined And so tangent is undefined at 90 degrees. And where else? Yep, error message. Where else is tangent undefined? 270. And just to reemphasize, at 270, the x-coordinate is 0, the y-coordinate is -1, and if I do the sine's y-coordinate divided by the cosine's x-coordinate, I get undefined, divided by 0. And as you are working through these homework problems, I want you to notice that every time you find the tangent and you look at the sine divided by the cosine, that it matches with what it looks like the slope should be. So if you come back over here to, which page is this? Is that the last page? Yes, the last page of the classwork. So lines through the origin, we want to focus on slope. We are going to use lines through the origin when we are working with tangent, and we also want to use it when we are working with cotangent. Cotangent is always going to be the reciprocal of the slope, which there are a lot of things with the unit circle that can mess with any mild dyslexia. So I've got ways to cope with it, and I will let you guys know as we go along. So make sure that you have this down. This is very valuable. Horizontal lines focus on y-coordinates. You want to look at horizontal lines when you are dealing with either sine or its reciprocal cosecant. When it comes to vertical lines, those are looking at x-coordinates. And you want to use those when you are looking at cosine of an angle or cosine's reciprocal secant. So now that you have all these strategies, let's try to finish up the classwork. What is the cotangent of 210 degrees? And I'm trying to go back. 210 degrees, what is the cotangent? Now we can start off by saying cotangent is cosine divided by sine. I just forgot what angle it was. 210. Okay, here's my mess of a unit circle. I need to erase while you guys see if you can figure it out. (210 degrees is 180 plus 30 degrees more. So that takes me right here. What is the x-coordinate of this point? The x-coordinate is, let me make sure you're with me. What is the x-coordinate of that point? And then negative root 3 over 2. And then what is the y-coordinate of that point? -1/2. Now, when I'm doing cotangent, I'm actually looking at cosine divided by sine. I'm looking at the x divided by the y. And that's giving me positive the square root of 3. Now, tangent of 210 is the reciprocal. It's 1 divided by root 3. If I look at this line right here, can you see that it's within reason to say that that slope is positive 1 divided by root 3? And then the reciprocal is your cotangent, which is positive root 3. Now, we actually already found the tangent of 90 degrees. Do you remember what it is? What is the tangent of 90 degrees? Undefined, you got it. If you take the point on the unit circle where 90 degrees lands and draw a line through the origin, the slope of that line is the same exact thing as the tangent of that line. And so it is undefined. Okay, now cosecant. Cosecant is whose reciprocal? And did everyone at least get sine going through their head? Good. So now find 270 degrees. And first ask yourself, what is the sine of 270 degrees? What is the sine of 270 degrees? It's the y-coordinate of that point. It's -1. What is the reciprocal of -1? It's -1. Woo! Okay, secant of 270 degrees. Who is the reciprocal function of secant? Cosine. So now, what is the cosine of 270 degrees? What is the x-coordinate of this point? 0. So that means the secant of 270 degrees is whatever 1 over 0 is. And what's 1 over 0? I'm looking in chat. What is 1 divided by 0? It is undefined. Dividing by 0 creates problems. Then cotangent. Remember, cotangent is cosine divided by sine. And we just got that the cosine of 270 is 0. The sine of 270 is -1. And good, you are correct. 0 divided by -1 is 0. And then we got one last one here. What's the tangent of 180? And I'm trying to figure out if that... So give me a new answer. There we go. 0 it is. 0 it is. because tangent is sine divided by cosine. The sine of 180 is the y-coordinate at that point, which is 0, and the x-coordinate is -1. You can also, I find it so much easier looking at slope. With tangent, it's always asking what is slope. Cotangent is always asking what is the slope's reciprocal. So now, finally, tonight, this classwork is due and this homework is due in full. And then tomorrow we're going to finally get started on 6.5. And for those of you that are wanting to see what it is, I will show you in a second. Let me stop the